Welcome to a winter electric wonderland. We've got the Hyundai Kona Electric and the Chevrolet Bolt EUV. Both very similar in size and battery output, estimated range, technology. Well, how do they perform in the cold? Not as well as when you're driving in Los Angeles, not at all. That's why I'm here today in Massachusetts to test both of them and tell you how they really drive. So let's get to it. Before you dive into this video, try selling your car on CarGurus, or at least see what it's worth. Type in a few details, get a cash offer from dealers nationwide. And if you like the price and you're gonna sell, guess what? They pick it up and they pay you. If you're looking for an affordable, compact electric car, these are two of the cheapest. And by cheap, I don't mean bad. They look decent, but their technology, their performance, and the quality is pretty good. New for 2023 is the red line. That's a trim that's optional on the LT and the Premier. You get little red stripes here on the door mirrors, red stripes on the wheels, they're black. That's basically a little look. There's no extra performance despite the red line name. Overall, the EUV version of the Bolt looks better. It's longer, it's taller, it's wider. It's significantly bigger feeling than the Kona Electric, and that's both inside and out, especially the rear doors. You can open these things and really have a lot of egress. Excellent. But overall, I don't think that either of these cars are lookers. They try a little bit with the nice thin LEDs on the top and the headlamps below, but let's put it this way, they're small, stubby little city cars. There's no visual changes to the 2023 Kona Electric. There's some more standard features inside, so it carries over everything that you already knew about the Kona. Now, a new one is coming for 2024. Look at the preview photo of that. Pretty nice. I think it looks a heck of a lot better than this one. This still has that kind of frumpy looking city hatchback vibe about it. It's kind of cool in some angles because I like the regular gas Kona with that aggressive grille. Not as much of a fan of the big solid grille and that charge port sticking out right in the front. But yeah, it's fine, right? It'll do just fine, but not as hot looking as other Hyundai models, for sure. The Kona's cargo space is the same on the electric version as it is on the gas. That's kind of nice, but the gas version was very small to begin with. When you go into a Bolt EUV, you're getting 57 cubic feet of total space. That is a massive jump versus the Kona Electric, and that's something you're gonna notice day to day. These two EVs couldn't be more similar if they dated, went to high school, and had kids together. Check out the battery capacities. Now check out the EPA estimated range. Now check out our actual range on a full charge as indicated by the cars. Significantly less. Now check out the horsepower and the torque. The Hyundai has a little bit more. And because the Hyundai has a little bit higher range, it's actually better on the fuel economy segments, MPGe slightly better. But basically, you couldn't be more similar. You know, it's nice to be sitting in a Chevy Bolt and not have the metal seat frames poking into my ribs. That's how it felt when I drove the original Bolt. But this one, the EUV, actually is comfortable all the way around. And when I look at this car, how it's designed, the room, and really the quality of the materials, it's actually nicer than the Kona Electric. That's odd to say about a GM car. I like the screen, especially how it's positioned. It's flush within the dash, which I think is just more polished and upscale looking. And this is also a crisper and easier to use screen. Just check out the spacing, check out the size of these icons, the fact that they're color coded. When you do all this when you're driving on the highway at higher speeds, this is what you want. Hyundai could use some lessons from Chevy here. When you go into the energy app, you can see the flow, all these details about how you're using more energy, and it definitely does, because in the wintertime, the heat pulls a lot more. The climate controls are all here, very accessible, but these are toggle switches, so it's a little difficult to use. Check it out. You want to do heat, you go up, but then you have to go all the way down. When you want to cool, you have to go down and then adjust it by going up. I don't think that's as intuitive. There's also a blank switch here, but heated and cooled seats, that's nice. Heated steering wheel, and these will automatically come on during a remote start. The Bolt has a much smaller instrument cluster than the Kona, and it doesn't have the customization or the fancy graphics, but it is clear, and you can show basically one of two layouts. Now, the reason there are 3 numbers for the battery range, that's because the Bolt wants to tell you what the computer is thinking. You get minimum, maximum, and then a number somewhere in the middle. And even though the range isn't quite as good as the Kona's, well, at least you have your numbers. And here's a feature you won't even find on a Tesla Model 3. True hands-free driving. Super Cruise is not even a $3,000 option on the Bolt EUV, and yet it's here. Without automatic lane changing like you'll find in Cadillac and other Chevy models that cost more, we reviewed this system before and it works really well on the Bolt. The Bolt's center console isn't quite as fancy looking as the Kona, but it's just as functional. Pop your phone in there for the wireless charger, and you got PRND. Now the shifter does take some getting used to. There's some push buttons and pulling, but if you're used to Acura and Honda products, that's also there. I just like this layout a little bit better. Compared to the Kona, the Bolt has an enormous back seat. It's notable. You have legroom, you have actual headroom, and it's scalloped up here so my hair can fit. That's very important. Heated rear seats, some USB ports. It's basic back here. You don't even have a map pocket or anything to put behind this seat, but it's not hard plastic. And on this upper Premier trim, it feels pretty comfortable. So the Kona Electric has a nicer interior than the regular Kona. That's because you have this nice center stack that's not gapped, right? The other one has these big holes in it. It doesn't look as sleek or as refined. This one does. However, the materials everywhere here, especially the lower ones, they're not very good for a car of this price. And the Chevy, the quality is just nicer. This screen is not as tall or as clear as what you'll find in the Bolt. And these icons, they all have the same kind of shape and color, so at a glance, it's not as easy to find. But all these shortcut buttons are here, so when you're used to it all, it's pretty good. Plus the setup, you get a lot of different menu options here. It illustrates things for you, so you don't have to dig around. And if you go into the EV menu, you can see your current charge, what you can do with the EV settings, for example, like a winter mode. Winter mode is a good option. You won't find that in a lot of EVs at this price. It'll maintain the DC charging rate a lot better than if you didn't use it. The Bolt doesn't have that. It also has some other options to warn you when you're out of your electric range on the nav, for example. I like the instrument panel better here than in the Bolt. It's just wider, there's more information, and there's nicer looks, including Cube for no reason whatsoever. And when you cycle through the information, it works just like any Hyundai vehicle, so it makes it really easy to relearn. And highway driving assist is included on these upper trims. That is semi-automated, but it's not hands-free like you'll find in the Bolt. This is the range right now at roughly 50% battery. Now let's activate the heat. Now let's actually turn the fan up. I'm not adjusting the FM radio frequencies, that's the range, and that is what happens. You have to choose between your comfort in the car and how far you can drive. For this model year, you get an 8-way power driver's seat and heated front seats. That's now standard. There's also more standard features like this bigger screen when you move up the ladder in the trim. So they're giving you a little bit more. I do like the infotainment, though it's not as clear and easy to use as the Bolts. I do like this digital instrument panel. It's wider all around, feels more like a conventional car when you're in the Kona versus the Bolt. Tap this little cover, nice little hidden wireless phone charger. This is not so good. DPNR, it's PRND. When you're trying to do a 3-point turn, I don't know what to hit. This is just terrible back here. My knees are jammed against this front seat. It's hard plastic. There's no toe room either, hardly any headroom. A dog would fit nicely back here, but he's not gonna get heated rear seats like you can in the Bolt. Stepping up to the Kona Electric, it's a nice upgrade versus the base Kona gas engines. The 1.6 liter turbo is fun. So if you haven't driven that, watch my reviews of both of the vehicles I've driven over the years. They're good. But with all electric cars, there's a nice seamless flow of torque. There's 290 pound-feet. It's only driving the front wheels, but Hyundai manages that pretty well, so you don't ever feel like the wheels are getting overwhelmed. Now the Bolt is a different story. Sometimes you'll hear the tires chirp like it's struggling to find some grip. This one just builds the torque and the speed nice and effortlessly without you really noticing what's happening. There's 3 levels of brake regeneration. That's what you do with the steering wheel paddles here. It will also automatically adjust the regen using the radar sensors on the front. That's kind of nice. It's nice that you can easily change it here on the go. I like that. In the Bolt, there's no adjustable brake regen. There's actually a left paddle that you just hold, and there's one pedal driving, but I prefer the left and right paddles of this Kona Electric. It just feels more natural because you're already used to paddle shifters in a gas car. You can hop in here and figure it out in no time. One of the issues I had with the Kona was that it rode kind of choppily. It was a bit rough. Well, when you add hundreds and hundreds of pounds of battery underneath you, guess what? The ride has improved considerably. This feels more substantial. I just feel like it's a bigger car, even though it's very tiny. I'm very aware of that. But the ride quality has definitely improved with the Kona Electric versus any of the gas ones I've tested. Thankfully, the steering remains nice and true. It's nice and accurate. That was always one of the fun parts about the Kona, is that it's fun to drive. Even small cars that are this small aren't always that great all the way around. Mini Coopers, for example. You think that they're like a go-kart? Not exactly. The Hyundai Kona is that type of car, and the electric version doesn't take away that fun. I'm glad they kept that intact. That said, I really wouldn't want to take this or the Bolt on long highway trips. They just feel a little more nervous, especially around big trucks where you get those wind drafts coming in, and it's like you just have to fight a little bit more to stay straight than you would in a larger car. The brake pedal feels a little mushy, even all the way down to the bottom when you come to a stop. Other EVs do a better job, I think, of making them feel more natural. Despite there being less torque than the Kona Electric, it's hard to tell the difference between these two. They accelerate basically the same. The Bolt has the guts to it, it really does. Sport mode actually will throw you back in your seat for just like a half second. You can kind of pretend that you're in a sports car or a Corvette. It's all just pretend though, because you look around here and you just kind of get sad that you didn't spend $100 grand on that white Corvette we drove in the winter, right? Yeah, watch that review. But then come back and watch what we're really doing today, driving a Bolt EUV in the winter. Now, the main problem about driving this car in the winter is that in any condition, it can only accept up to 55 kilowatts on a DC fast charge station. That's about half of what the Kona Electric can do. Now, in roughly 30-degree weather, I couldn't even go from 15 to 80% in an hour. It was less than that. It took me 2.5 hours at a 50 kilowatt hour EV Go station to get all the way to 100. And at that point, I barely even had 200 miles of range. So that's probably the most frustrating thing about the Bolt EUV versus the Kona Electric. In these conditions, and really under any condition, like I'm saying, when you have to fast charge, it's not going to deliver that same level of performance. Like the Kona, the Bolt EUV is actually kind of fun to drive for the most part. You feel like it's nimble, even though there's more weight in here than, say, a Chevy Spark or a Chevy Sonic, that this would be in a comparable size class. But what's great about these cars is that it's easy to park, they're easy to maneuver, they're easy to turn. That's not the case when you step up to the bigger SUVs, even in the compact class. These are more the subcompact class. So that nimbleness is just nice on back roads and city streets. That's where these cars excel. Now the handling, also pretty good. Corners pretty flat, not much lean. When I get on the brakes, they're a little soft as well. I wish there was just a little firmer bite. That seems to be the trend with a lot of brakes on EVs. They just don't deliver that same, initial stability and safe feeling, right? You want to have more security when you brake. I guess we get used to these pedals after a while, but you can do one pedal driving with the Bolt EUV, but there's no paddle shifters except for a single paddle shifter that all it does, you have to actually hold it down, and that will help bring you to a stop. It's kind of okay, but I think I'd rather use the brake pedal for that, Not quite as intuitive as the two-paddle operation you'll find in the Kona Electric. I like how this car drives. In general, I can't really find too much of a dynamic difference between this car and the Hyundai, because they're very similar. I think this is actually a little quieter, and then combined with the interior here, it does feel like I'm in a slightly more upscale car. Not by much, but a little bit. There's a more progressive feel to the way the brake pedal feels than that Kona Electric, so even though this isn't quite the exact feel I'm looking for in a car, this one hits it closer. Here's what our cars look like on a full charge, plugged in on a timed departure during a warmer winter day in the 40s. That's already a big drop from their EPA estimates. Now look at what a 1.5-hour highway drive does to both cars in the same condition. The Kona Electric was within 10 miles of its range estimate. The Bolt EUV dropped another 33 miles. Imagine what happens when it's below freezing. The 2023 Bolt EUV is the second most affordable new EV on sale after the regular Bolt. It starts at $27,800, and that is before any federal tax credits, and it qualifies for the full $7,500, where the Hyundai Kona Electric does not. That means that the 2023 Bolt is thousands cheaper than it used to be. That is a major difference. Now, the Kona Electric starts at $33,550. It's also one of the most affordable EVs. The Volkswagen ID.4, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and the larger Hyundai Ioniq 5, they all cost a lot more. And the new Nissan Ariya is much, much more. So if you're looking for affordability, these two are it. Now, the Kona EV is $43,440 as equipped. The Bolt EUV, $38,485, and these are both fully loaded. In this comparison, the Bolt EUV is the winner. Despite it not charging as quickly as the Kona Electric, not driving quite as far, especially in the winter, the interior, the technology, and the price make this just a standout EV among the entire segment. You can't find an EV priced like this that drives like this. Everything else is in the 40s, 50s, and higher, despite a federal tax credit. So what do you think? We have more EV comparos, plenty more plug-in comparos, and of course, good old-fashioned gas cars right here at CarGurus YouTube channel, cargurus.com. So subscribe, and we'll see you next time.